Meet Sadao Mao, the almighty Demon Lord from Ente Isla. Or rather, he was almighty, until he got his butt kicked by the hero and fled through a portal, only to land in the middle of modern-day Tokyo. Now, stripped of his powers, Sadao's grand conquest of the human world has been reduced to a 9-to-5 grind at McGronald's. Yes, our terrifying Demon King now spends his days flipping burgers and mopping floors in a fast food joint, where the only thing he's ruling is the value meal. Regardless of his pathetic predicament, he's still got plans for world domination. It's just that those plans have been delayed by minimum wage and rent payments. Watching him fumble through mundane human life is nothing short of tragic, and yet somehow he's taking it all in stride. His clueless optimism about climbing the corporate ladder is almost admirable, if it wasn't so sad. His old enemies, like the hero Emilia, just can't seem to let bygones be bygones. Now they're bickering on Earth like a couple going through a messy breakup. And with demons, angels, and fast food managers breathing down his neck, Sadao has his hands full just trying to survive. The devil may have traded his throne for a cash register, but watching him try to conquer the deep fryer is where the real entertainment begins. The story begins by introducing the 5 islands surrounding the Great Sea of Ignora. At the center of it all is Ente Isla, an island watched over by the gods. Ente Isla is ruled by Satan, the Demon King, who leads the demon army alongside his 4 generals, Adramelech, Lucifer, Malakota, and Alciel. Together, they wage war on the humans living on the surrounding islands. However, the humans, being the stubborn-headed species they are, fight back with a hero who manages to defeat Satan's forces one by one, eventually leaving Satan isolated on Ente Isla. The hero and their allies confront Satan, forcing him to flee like a scared, misplaced cat to another world with his loyal general, Alciel. Before leaving, Satan swears that he will one day return to finish what he started. In the new world, Satan and Alciel arrive to find themselves in human-like forms and stripped of their magical powers. Confused and disoriented, they try to make sense of their situation when 2 police officers approach them, noticing their strange clothing and apparent injuries. The officers, assuming they're foreigners in cosplay, attempt to assist them. Alciel, still thinking he can use magic, tries to attack the officers with a flamboyant display any ballet dancer will envy. Unfortunately for him, nothing happens. Without any magic, both Satan and Alciel are taken to the police station. While there, Satan is given a bowl of katsudon. Realizing he can still use a small amount of magic, he subtly extracts information from the officer's mind to learn about the world they've been transported to. After gathering enough intel, Satan goes to check on Alciel, only to find his not-so-loyal servant shamelessly enjoying the katsudon meal. Satan knocks out the officer and shares the meal with Alciel. Eventually, they manage to get themselves new identities, a bank account, and an apartment. When they are introduced to their new home, they meet Miki Shiba, their landlord, whose presence makes both Satan and Alciel feel uneasy, probably because of her unique and exotic beauty. Satan, now going by the name Mao, and Alciel as Shiro, begin to settle into their new lives. One day, while Mao is riding his bike to work, he sees a young lady who forgot her umbrella and generously offers her his own before heading off. This act of kindness leaves an impression on the girl. At his job at McGronald's, Mao is determined to set a new record for black pepper fries sales and shows a serious work ethic that impresses his co-worker, Chiho. Despite her compliments, Mao remains humble, which is honestly surprising considering he's supposed to be an evil incarnate. Meanwhile, Shiro spends his time in the library researching the world's magic and trying to figure out how they can return to Ente Isla. Mao reassures him that once they regain their powers, they'll not only conquer Ente Isla but also this new world. Motivated by Mao's words, Shiro promises to follow him no matter what, though he can't help but be frustrated by Mao's low-paying job. Suddenly, an earthquake strikes the area. Mao feels it while on break with Chiho, who is frustrated over accidentally dropping fries of all things. Mao tries to comfort her, but their manager, Kisaki, interrupts, reminding them to stay focused as the restaurant is now flooded with customers. Just when things start to get busy, the black pepper fryer breaks down. Mao considers using magic to fix it, but Shiro's warning to save their magic for emergencies crosses his mind. Before Mao can act, Kisaki steps in and asks if everything is all right. Later, Mao feels guilty that the restaurant didn't reach its sales goal because of the fryer issue, but Chiho tries to cheer him up, saying the repairman will fix it by the evening. When Kisaki calls Mao to her office, he thinks he's in trouble for the fryer or that she's discovered his magic. Instead, she surprises him by promoting him to A-level staff. Ecstatic about his promotion, Mao rides his bike home and reflects on his progress in this world. On his way back, he bumps into the same young lady he helped earlier. She reveals that she knows his true identity, Satan. Mao quickly realizes that the girl is none other than Emilia, the hero who fought him back in Ente Isla. It's revealed that after Satan fled from Ente Isla, the hero Emilia pursued him to the alternate world to finish what she started, like a standard fantasy hero. Back in the present, Emilia confronts Mao, demanding to know why the once mighty Satan is working as a pathetic, poverty-stricken part-timer at a McGronald's. Mao, equally surprised to see her, asks why she followed him to this world. Emilia explains that she crossed through the same gate to kill him. She then pulls out a small knife from her bag to threaten him, but Mao mocks her weapon, pointing out that it's a cheap 100-yen store knife. Flustered by his comment, Emilia tells him to be quiet. Mao, realizing that she also lost her powers, asks if she lost her sacred sword as well. Unfazed, Emilia attempts to attack Mao, but before anything can happen, they are interrupted by a police officer who mistakes their argument for a lover's quarrel and takes them back to the station for questioning. The officer's misunderstanding leaves Emilia visibly irritated at the thought that she is coupled with a no-good loser like him, but she says nothing. After the incident, Emilia swears that she will track Mao down again, memorizing his home address in true stalker fashion. Mao, in a calm voice, asks for his umbrella back, but she coldly responds that she disposed of it, much to his disappointment. Before walking away, she warns him to watch his back from now on. The next day, we see Emilia, who now goes by the name Emmy, working as a call center agent for the Dokademo Company. After finishing her shift, she picks up groceries and heads home to her modest apartment. She eats dinner alone, just like you watching this video, while watching TV, brooding over how she now lives a life that eerily resembles her enemy Mao's lifestyle. Meanwhile, back at Mao and Shiro's apartment, they are enjoying their dinner when the doorbell suddenly rings. Emmy is at the door, demanding to be let in. Shiro immediately locks the door, panicking and asking Mao what they should do. Mao then admits that he ran into Emmy recently but forgot to mention it to Shiro. After some hesitation, they finally let her in, and she quickly starts criticizing their tiny, poorly furnished apartment and their meal. During their conversation, Mao asks Emmy if she came to this world alone, to which she reveals that the High Priest Olba had attempted to follow her, but was unable to pass through the portal in time. Mao then explains his grand plan. Rather than immediately plotting world domination, he has been working his way up at McGronald's with the goal of eventually becoming a full-time employee, which he sees as the first step in his plan to conquer Japan, and later, Ente Isla. Emmy, clearly disappointed by his utter lack of ambition, leaves, warning him once again that she is still capable of killing him, though doing so would trap her in this world. Before departing, she gives them her full name, and they learn each other's new identities from the nameplates outside their apartments. Later, at Emmy's workplace, her co-worker Rika invites her out for dinner, but Emmy declines. Rika jokingly speculates that Emmy has a new boyfriend, which Emmy vehemently denies. That evening, Emmy pays another visit to Mao's apartment, but he and Shiro are out on an important side quest, heading to a nearby store to buy eggs on sale. Unbeknownst to them, Emmy is secretly following their every move like an obsessed stalker. She initially believes they're heading out to commit some sort of violent bloodbath, but soon realizes they're just going to a bathhouse. Despite her disappointment, she continues to observe them in their daily lives, catching glimpses of their strange routines, like Mao experimenting with cucumbers and honey to see if the combination tastes like watermelon. Emmy eventually visits Mao at his workplace and demands that he meet her later at the spot where they first encountered each other in this world. Mao, unfazed by her demands, remains in his calm worker mode, confusing her even more. After she leaves, Mao's co-worker, Chiho, notices the tension and asks about his relationship with Emmy. Mao simply replies that they have a complicated history, which annoys Chiho, who wants the full tea. She presses him further, mentioning the recent earthquake. Mao admits he felt it, but his roommate Shiro didn't. Chiho then shares that the earthquake caused damage to her home, knocking down several items. She's relieved when Mao clarifies that Shiro is just a friend who helps with living expenses, easing her jealousy. Later that night, Mao meets Emmy at their designated spot. She bluntly asks if he's really content living in this world forever. Emmy lists off the various things she's learned about him in her recent observations, noting how far he's fallen, but Mao confidently declares that he still plans to conquer Japan and eventually Ente Isla. Just as he makes this proclamation, they are attacked by an unknown assailant, forcing the two of them to flee for their pitiful lives. Once they escape danger, Mao and Emi part ways, but not before Emi confronts him again near his apartment, sheepishly asking if she can spend the night there. Reluctantly, Mao agrees, much to Shiro's dismay. That night, Mao receives an ominous text from an unknown sender, warning him of more earthquakes to come. After Emi spends the night at Mao and Shiro's place, she leaves behind some pickled vegetables as thanks and returns the key to their apartment. Back at her home, Emi watches the news, which reports on the crime scene where she and Mao were attacked. The next news segment covers a string of local robberies in the area where Mao and Chiho work. Meanwhile, Chiho eagerly looks forward to meeting Mao, delusionally viewing it as more of a date than a casual meeting to discuss the earthquake she anticipated. At work, Rika approaches Emi to talk about a shooting near Emi's home, then invites her to get something to eat. Emi declines, stating that she lost her wallet. At that moment, Emi receives a phone call from a distorted voice that calls her by her real name and title, warning that both she and Mao will die according to the will of Ente Isla. Recognizing that the voice belongs to a demon, Emi demands to know who's speaking, but the call abruptly ends. Before Emi can accept Rika's lunch offer, she gets another call, this time from the police, informing her that Mao needs her ID to retrieve his bike. Emi shows up at the station, frustrated that she has to act as Mao's guarantor. Before parting, she warns him about the threatening call she received, indicating that the caller said they would be unalived. Meanwhile, Chiho prepares for her meeting with Mao, unaware of his current clothes shopping trip with Shiro. Later, Mao and Chiho meet at the city center. They exchange compliments on their outfits, like two overbearing lovers, and, at Chiho's request, hold hands as they head to Café d'Autour. During this time, Shiro encounters Emi, who questions what he's up to. After a brief back and forth, Emi learns that Mao is on a date with Chiho. Shiro explains the situation, and Emi becomes determined to confront Chiho at the cafe, despite Shiro's objections. Inside Café d'Autour, Chiho confesses to Mao about her struggle with tinnitus, which has worsened. She describes how it escalated into hearing a mysterious voice speaking in a foreign language, warning her about future earthquakes. Mao starts to connect the dots between the recent earthquakes and Chiho's strange symptoms. Just as he's deep in thought, Mao notices Emi entering the cafe, causing him to do a spit take. He quickly regains composure and tries to dismiss Chiho's symptoms as nothing serious. Meanwhile, Emi and Shiro sit at a nearby table, separated by a glass pane, where they observe Mao and Chiho. As Chiho begins to build up the courage to confess her spontaneous feelings for Mao, Emi intervenes, warning Chiho that Mao is not who she thinks he is. Chiho immediately recognizes Emi as the woman who confronted Mao the other day and assumes she must be his ex-girlfriend. An argument breaks out between the two, but it's interrupted by a massive earthquake that causes the entire building to collapse. In the chaos, Chiho and Emi become trapped together under debris. The two set aside their animosity and formally introduce themselves. Emi seizes the opportunity to ask what made Chiho fall for Mao, but Chiho, flustered, dodges the question faster than Goku's Ultra Instinct. Sensing Chiho's discomfort, Emi presses further, questioning if she really understands who Mao is. Chiho responds by asking if Emi truly considers herself Mao's enemy, to which Emi replies affirmatively, again cautioning Chiho that Mao is not what he seems. Emi then uses her magic to put Chiho to sleep, telling her to rest. Shortly after, Mao arrives in his demonic form, much to Emi's surprise. Despite her original intent to use the remainder of her magic to kill Mao, she is taken aback when he focuses on rescuing the earthquake victims instead. Emi is left totally flabbergasted by this behavior, as it doesn't align with her perception of him as the devil. A news helicopter reports the recent earthquake that caused the Shinjuku Highway to collapse. Amidst the rubble, Emi reflects on her childhood with her father, Nord. Those were simpler, innocent times for Emi, until one day members of the Church of Ente Isla came and took her away. As a half-angel and half-human, Emi was chosen as the hero of humanity, destined to defeat the Demon King Satan and his demon army just like any proper hero of ages. That was the last time she saw her father, as the demon army, led by General Lucifer, destroyed everything, burning the land to ashes just days later. In the present, Mao has reverted to his human-like form and checks on Emi, who is soon joined by Chiho. A police officer approaches and recognizes Chiho as the daughter of Shinichi, the officer Mao had used his magic on when he and Shiro first arrived in this world. After parting with Chiho, Mao deduces that the magic he used on Shinichi somehow afflicted Chiho. causing her to hear strange voices. Before leaving the scene, Mao tells Emi that their common enemy likely targeted them using the earthquake as a trap in an assassination attempt. A remorseful Shiro then arrives, bowing and begging for Mao's forgiveness for his past mistakes. Later, Emi meets up with her co-worker Rika and enjoys dinner at her house. While they eat, Emi opens up about her family in Kobe and shares her experience of living through an earthquake as a child. The conversation deepens as Rika notes that Emi seems conflicted about something, leading to a heartfelt exchange. Meanwhile, Mao and Shiro are stopped by a couple of police officers, one of whom mistakes them for a traveling comedy duo practicing an act. The officer confesses that he once dreamed of becoming an actor, but warns them to be cautious due to recent muggings in the area. Back at Rika's place, as Emi prepares to take a bath, Rika watches the news, which reports that the robber has claimed his 7th victim. While in the bath, Emi reflects on whether Mao felt the same sense of responsibility when he rescued the victims from the collapsed subway during the earthquake. The following day, Emi visits Mao's apartment to return the 1,000 yen she owes him like a good debtor, but despite his dismay, she refuses to leave him alone for a while. She also learns about the psychological trauma Shiro experienced due to the events of the previous day. After a brief argument about Chiho, Emi prepares to leave, only to trip and fall down the stairs, suffering minor injuries. To treat her wounds, Mao sends Shiro to fetch some bandages and gauze from the pharmacy. While Shiro is gone, Emi and Mao get into a heated argument. Emi accuses Mao of being too kind to her, despite their past as enemies, and she criticizes him for shamelessly flirting with a high school girl. Her anger boils over as she reminds him that his army killed her father when she was young. To Emi's surprise, Mao apologizes, explaining that he didn't understand humans back then. At that moment, Chiho arrives with Shiro, who had bumped into her on his way back. Upon seeing Mao and Emi together, Chiho tearfully misunderstands the situation and runs off like a broken-hearted bride-to-be. As she leaves, their landlady, Miki, arrives and informs Mao that repairs will soon begin around the apartment complex. She also reveals that Chiho is connected to the recent earthquakes due to her ability, the sonar link. Before leaving, Miki suggests that Mao take responsibility for the situation and go meet with Chiho, who's heading toward the train station. Meanwhile, 2 of Emi's companions from Ente Isla, Esmeralda and Albert, are seen traveling through the gate, making their way to the alternate world. Elsewhere, Chiho tearfully acknowledges her love for Mao when a young man approaches her. He claims he will use her despair to cause chaos, surpassing Mao. Sprouting a pair of black wings, the man uses magic to destroy a nearby building. Mao and the others who are nearby witness the destruction unfold. Passing through the gate, Esmeralda and Albert continue their journey until Albert pathetically vomits into a bag due to the effects of interdimensional travel. Back on Earth, Emi is shocked to see Lucifer, as she had previously killed him with the sacred sword. Mao explains that Lucifer's survival is due to his new ally, Olba Meyer, one of the 6 high priests of the church. Olba then appears, much to Emi's dismay. Mao quickly deduces that Lucifer and Olba's goal is to kill both him and Emi. Mao mocks Olba's plan, comparing it to a low-budget B-movie, a comment that disturbs Shiro, as their finances don't even allow them such a luxury. As Mao and Shiro bicker like siblings from a broken home, Lucifer grows impatient and attacks Shiro, then unleashes a barrage of magic against Mao and the group, forcing them to flee like scatter pigeons. Wondering how Lucifer has so much magic, Mao reveals that Lucifer absorbed negative energy from convenience store employees. Lucifer compliments Mao for figuring out his trick, but asks how he discovered it. Mao explains that during the recent tunnel collapse, he absorbed excess negative energy, which allowed him to deduce Lucifer's scheme and regain some of his own power. Lucifer questions why Mao isn't collecting more magic for himself, to which Mao responds that he finds life on Earth novel and interesting. Displeased by Mao's reasoning, Lucifer reveals that he's holding Chiho hostage and is using her as a vessel to absorb more energy. Chased by Lucifer, Mao and Emi dodge his attacks, though one manages to pierce Mao's shoulder. Olba then shoots Mao in the leg, immobilizing him. With the last of his magic, Mao teleports himself, Emi, and Shiro to Koshu Kaido Road. However, their enemies quickly catch up, and Lucifer blasts a hole through Mao's chest, seemingly killing him. No longer needing Chiho, Lucifer drops her from the sky, but Emi manages to catch her, severely injuring her precious little kneecaps in the process. Lucifer, determined to fulfill his contract with Olba, destroys the nearby bridge above Emi and Chiho. Amazingly, Mao, now in his Satan form, uses his restored magic to stop the falling debris from crushing Emi and Chiho. Moments later, Chiho awakens and is stunned to see Mao in his true form. Emi deduces that Mao is absorbing the negative energy from the nearby witnesses. Mao then asks Emi to handle Lucifer while he focuses on keeping the bridge from collapsing. Emi, tapping into her celestial energy, transforms into her hero form. Mao creates a magical barrier, knocking out everyone in the area except for Chiho, allowing Emi to fight Lucifer. During the battle, Shiro, now recovered thanks to Mao's help, joins Emi. As they talk, Olba attempts to ambush them with his gun, but Emi blasts the weapon out of his hand using her magic. Lucifer chastises Olba for not using his magic, but Olba counters that he can't waste it, as he has no way to replenish it and needs it to return home. Lucifer argues that if they lose, it would all be for nothing, forcing Olba to join the fight, though he's quickly defeated. Eventually, Mao gently sets down the bridge debris and reassures Chiho, telling her that he'll teach her how to work the ice cream machine after this is all over. Mao then confronts Lucifer and knocks him out with a single punch. Following the fight, Mao explains the truth about himself, his friends, and their origins to Chiho. Curious about whether Mao intends to return to Ente Isla now that his powers are restored, Mao dismisses the idea, citing his shifts at work. This surprises Shiro, who argues with Mao about staying in the human realm. Meanwhile, Lucifer admits to Emi that he contacted her at work because he had found her wallet. As Emi reprimands Lucifer, Esmeralda and Albert arrive through a gate and approach the group. Emi then leads Chiho, Esmeralda, and Albert to Mao's apartment, where they bring everyone up to speed on the church's dark plot. Back at the scene of the fight, Mao uses the remainder of his magic to repair the broken bridge. At his apartment, Emi serves tea to Chiho, Esmeralda, and Albert. Albert reveals that he was the voice Chiho had been hearing in her head. He explains that he used sonar pulses to contact Emi, but Chiho intercepted the signal because it was tuned to anyone constantly thinking about Satan. Afterward, Emi says goodbye to Esmeralda and Albert, who return to their world through the gate. At McGronald's, Chiho and Mao work their shift. Chiho asks Mao if he plans to return to Ente Isla, to which Mao admits he cannot, having exhausted much of his power. He apologizes for not being able to erase her memories, but Chiho pouts and calls him an idiot for being so naive. Thanks for joining us on another adventure, my fellow weebs. If you enjoyed this episode of Weeb Tunes, make sure to smash that like button and leave a comment below, and subscribe to the channel.